Hello, everyone. Welcome to Innovator Insights from Idea to Impact, where we interview successful entrepreneurs about their journey and how they got there. Today, we're super excited to have Justin Chen, the CEO and founder of PickFu. PickFu is not a traditional consumer product company, but rather they work with a lot of consumer product companies. So I know this is going to be super interesting for our audience. So without further ado, welcome, Justin.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Henrik.
Oh, my pleasure. Justin is quite the celebrity in e-commerce circles. I think that worked with thousands of different e-commerce companies. He's at all the trade shows and conferences, and a sought after speaker and an expert in the space. So we're super excited to have him.
Yeah.
But before we jump into talking about PickFu and your journey there, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you do when you're not working? Where do you live? You got family, pets? What do you
Sure.
do when you're
Yeah.
not working?
So I'm in Culver City over in Los Angeles. Married, two kids, high school and middle school. So teenage years. Got a small dog that's over here. Hopefully she doesn't bark. And yeah, so I love to ski. Over the break, we were in Japan skiing up in Hokkaido. So that
Oh
that
yeah,
was
I remember you
awesome.
mentioned that. How
Yeah,
was it?
yeah. It was amazing. It was the powder. It happened to snow, and the powder was lived up to the hype. It was super fluffy. And actually, tomorrow, John, my co-founder John, and I are heading over to Salt Lake City to do some skiing there also. So, winter time, trying
Awesome.
to take advantage of it and get away from the too temperate weather of Los Angeles and enjoy some cold weather elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah. A couple quick question there. So I heard this is January in 2025. We're recording this. So one, fires in LA. I hope you guys are safe and not
Yeah, yeah,
affected.
we're nearby, but luckily our area it didn't get to our area. The air quality was definitely impacted. The kids' schools were canceled for a week.
Yeah.
So definitely know a lot of friends and family that were impacted though. So it'll take a while for everyone to recover.
Mhm.
Um, it's a it's a big blow to the city for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. It's
Definitely have
terrible.
not seen anything like this, and it's a good wake up call though. So I think a lot of the area is always at risk for those kinds of fires, and we were pretty paranoid. We had our evacuation stuff ready to go,
Yeah.
all our valuables and everything packed up. So yeah, hopefully the city kind of takes more precautions going forward to be prepared.
You can understand people now. I mean, if you live on Pacific Coast Highway, you have beachfront property. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't imagine the forest fire is going to get you, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it went all the way to I saw the lifeguard stands were burned down and, the houses and restaurants along the beach. And it's a crazy juxtaposition to see the fires along the beach there.
Yeah. It's just crazy. Yeah. Well, our best wishes and prayers for all of those affected. And then the other thing that, Park City you mentioned, I heard that there's a big, the
Yeah.
epic passes have not been so epic this year. The lift lines are terrible.
Yeah, I heard Park City, the guards, like the ski patrols on strike, and
Yeah.
it's really impacting things. So luckily we're on the Icon Pass, so we're actually going to Snowbird.
It should be better.
But should be better, but it may be more crowded since I think everyone's, you know,
Yeah.
trickling over to the other resorts. But
Well, either way,
yeah,
I'm sure it's going to be awesome.
yeah.
So, great, great. So did you grow up in California? You're
Yeah,
born,
I grew up in
raised there?
Orange County in Irvine, went
Hmm.
up to Berkeley, did a little stint in Chicago, and then came back to the Los Angeles area.
Yeah. And were your parents entrepreneurial? Did you grow up always knowing?
Yeah, my dad was he was working a corporate job doing kind of biochem stuff, and then he decided to quit his job. And I do remember distinctly one time I was in his office as a kid, and he kind of had the little chat with me like, hey, whatever you do, like be your own boss. Like, it's harder, but it's more rewarding. And so, that eventually popped back in my head, when it was time that I wanted to do something. And so it definitely had an impact on my choice.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And what was your first business? Was it PickFu or did you do something else before?
No, it was so. when my co-founder and I, when we first quit our jobs, we started a restaurant review and menu aggregator. And so that was back in 2006. And so we were running that for a while, and a lot of Google organic SEO, a lot of ad revenue. And it was during that time that we actually built PickFu on the side out of
Okay.
our out of a need, because we were doing a redesign and we wanted to get feedback on which design people liked, and we couldn't find a really good quick digital focus group. Um, so we built it, being engineers, and that's kind of where the first version started years ago, and it kind of kept growing organically over the years as we gathered customer feedback and just kept iterating on the product. And so that's kind of where it all started.
That's great. And then at some point in time, you realized that the side gig was bigger than the original gig, or
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, it was a combination of, it was growing, add more upside potential. The customer feedback was just amazing. Every time we talked to a customer of PickFu, it
Mhm.
was, oh, this is amazing. This has changed my business. This helped me make more money. This helped prevent a bad decision. And it felt so good to be making such an impact to our customers. And so we decided to switch over. And it was also around the same time that is starting to take off in ecom. So when we first
Yeah.
built it, it wasn't specific to ecom. It was, pretty much just a digital focus group. And we thought it was just gonna be any entrepreneur like ourselves. Um, but we actually kind of meandered a little bit. We were popular with self-publishing book authors in the very beginning, so testing book titles, book covers. Tim Ferriss had popularized using ads to test his 4 Hour Workweek book title, and so there were a lot of authors that were trying to be much more data driven around those decisions, and they also didn't have the benefit of a publisher, an editor, to help them make choices around titles and covers, and so PickFu kind of became the go-to for gathering that data for them. And gaming companies started using us, but it wasn't until Amazon sellers and e-com started using it that we saw how much it could impact someone's business on such a frequent basis. Because I think the name of the game in a lot of the e-com brands is, selling a lot of different products, and you're making a lot of different choices, especially ones that have a lot of investment, right? Like whether you're investing in a new product line or packaging. They're all heavy dollar investments. And so anything that you can do, any data point that can help de-risk that, that's where PickFu really comes in handy, because, we've heard so many stories around, oh, you helped me avoid, buying the wrong color for something.
Yeah,
Or, I iterated on packaging and like, it was a hit. So like these are the things that we're helping with.
that's awesome. It's a great product. So maybe just take a step back real quickly for
Sure.
the audience members that don't know what PickFu is. Can you give us a brief overview?
Sure. Yeah. So think of it as a digital focus group where you can come get customer crowdsourced insight on any product decision you're making. So whether you're doing a new product concept, or you're trying to decide on which product to source, or you're working on packaging design, all the way down to your marketing images, marketing copy, videos that you're making. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to go out. And you set up a survey where you ask a question, upload a few creatives, and we're going to go out and we're going to find your target audience for you. So you don't have to find them. We're going to incentivize them to answer the survey, and more importantly, give a written explanation why they made that choice. So why did they like this option over that one? And that's actually where you get a lot of the insight is in those qualitative responses, because a lot of times we're doing testing where maybe it's you're running ads and you get these clicks and you wonder why something won. Or even in live results, you see that someone may be getting more sales, but you don't necessarily understand why. And so getting that explanation is invaluable to making an informed decision on how to improve something. And so that's kind of how it works. It's all self-service. We try to make it really easy. We try to make it so that you don't have to know anything about conducting research and still be able to gain the benefits of consumer research.
Yeah, that's awesome. And correct me if I'm wrong, you can slice it based on a bunch of different demographics, right? So if I'm
Yeah.
testing any new product, I can see, not only which version did people like the best, but you can see, well, like retired men love
That's
this
right.
version more versus, Gen Z or, people that use TikTok a lot like this version.
Exactly.
All
Yeah.
right.
So you could either splice it by the demographic data, or you could target. So you could say, I only want feedback from male dog owners who drink tea, because I think that's my persona, and we'll just go out and find those people for to gather the feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And so then take a couple more steps back. So when you started, when did you launch the first sort of MVP, the first version?
Oh gosh, the first version was actually 2008. It was
Oh,
a
wow.
very long time ago. There was like literally just a PayPal button on there, and we put it out there just so that our friends and family could use it. We threw it up on Hacker News so that
Yeah.
other entrepreneurs could use it. And so we had no expectation. We just wanted to cover some costs and see if there was value to it. And it was a really interesting process, like talking to customers over the years. And this is something that's why we always advise our own customers to do the same, is that you really got to talk to your customers. You got to understand how they're using it. We weren't authors, but we did go into the author space. We weren't, we're not building games, but we also went into the gaming space where we have some of the largest game companies in the world using it now. And same with the e-com side, where, we're constantly talking to our customers, understanding how they want to use this to solve their everyday problems. And then we try to tailor the product. We create templates, we create educational material to make sure that it's solving those needs so that you don't have to, work with a market research consultant and spend thousands of dollars and wait weeks or months for this kind of feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And what is your so I understand you work with bigger customers, but you work with pretty small folks
Yeah.
too. What's the mix?
Oh, it really is all over the place. Yeah,
Yeah.
we want to we always want to make the product as accessible to anyone. That's kind of our core mission, is to democratize consumer research. So you'll always be able to come on the platform, not pay a subscription, and just start a poll. So it starts at $1 per response. So 15 responses, $15. So I feel like
Yeah.
everyone around the world could afford that. But yeah, we do have some of the largest enterprises in the world using it, and I think that's been a really interesting um, thing to watch, because we always thought it was going to be people without insights teams, smaller teams, smaller companies, but even
Yeah.
larger teams that do have insights organizations. We find that the product managers, the marketing managers, the designers of all those companies are using it because they're testing things. This allows you to test things that your insights teams won't test, because they're typically working on longer form research around like directionality of like, oh, should we launch this brand? And we're going to do some big
Yeah.
study. But if I want to optimize, some packaging or some wording on some copy, they're not going to run a test for me like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this really empowers people who aren't from that research background in any size company to gather that feedback. And what we try to encourage is people to focus on the frequency of gathering data as opposed to like getting it right. And so building that habit of, okay, well, I'm, working on a sketch for a video, like, instead of just testing the final video output, which is the culmination of a lot of decisions, can you test out, what the storyline is going to be, what the voiceover is going to be,
Yeah.
who's the
Yeah.
actor that you're going to cast, like what's the color scheme that you're going to use. There's a lot of decisions that you're making that you could gather feedback on.
Yeah.
Otherwise, when you get to the end, you just test the video, you're going to get feedback all over the place. And be like, oh, some people don't like this aspect, some people don't like this aspect. And you could have gathered a lot of that feedback along the way as you were building the product.
Yeah. And to that point too, I could see that it's, I don't know if it's called, is it false positives or false negatives, but you have to be careful about how you set up the test, right? To
That's
get,
right.
because like, let's say if you try to compare two ideas, but you have two versions of one idea and one that's kind of different, then you kind of skew the results, right? Do you guys have developed best practices and education and how to use the tool?
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right there. There's a couple of ways that it could be skewed. One is in the question, like you don't want to be asking leading questions, and so you obviously try to be objective as possible. You don't want to say like, "Do you like A or this better one B?" Something like
Yeah.
that. Um, so we do have a lot of pre-written questions that you could use. We recently launched an AI, like kind of question helper that will smooth out questions especially if English is not your native language. Um, and then, yeah, for the images, you're also right that you want to make sure that if you're doing a comparison of things, you want to make sure that they're the similar kind of quality, aspect ratio, all those things, so that, you know, one's not pixelated and one is, super smooth. And like that's what people are then focusing on, right? Even though what you want them to focus on is the design of something. So yeah, we do have a lot of best practices that we educate for our users. We're trying to build more of that into the product as well to help identify that for use. We'll tell you if the aspect ratio is off and things like that. And so we're continually trying to make it so that we help you not shoot yourself in the foot, but
Yeah.
it's an ongoing process.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a great tool too, because I find a lot of time is spent and probably a lot of it's wasted in corporate offices, executives or others sitting and arguing or about
Yeah.
opinions, right? And
Yeah.
we have this saying again by that, and we didn't invent it, but within the four walls of the buildings are just opinions. There aren't no answers, and the bad part about opinions often is the highest paid person in the room's
Yep.
opinion it wins.
Yeah.
Versus if you can use something like PickFu and get the voice of the real customer, it's almost impossible to argue with. It's like we asked them, and here's what people want.
Yeah. And I think that's the fun thing that we see is how people use it in those kind of corporate environments is a lot of times it is using it to prove to their boss, that their decision's correct, or prove to their clients. If they're an agency, we see a lot of that where agencies will use it to show you, like, look, ours is better. Like you can trust us. Like
Yeah,
we validated it with actual consumers and the other thing that we find is that very data driven organizations obviously take to it almost naturally. So for example, DuckDuckGo is a big customer, and their founder is a engineer, software engineer, and I think when that's typically the case, you do see that kind of data oriented trickle down through the organization's culture, and so there is much more um, respect given to decisions that are driven by customer data. And so we'll see them testing things from billboards to marketing copy to UX to email, like, across the board. Because some feedback from your consumers is definitely better than just opinions in the room, like you said.
yeah, yeah. So it's exciting to hear that you're working with such big companies. I've used your tool. It's super intuitive and easy. You can log in and within minutes,
Yeah.
you know, create a test. And I was also blown away to see that literally minutes, within an hour, you have responses too. So it's not
Yeah.
this like doesn't take 2 weeks. You probably within 4 hours you got all the responses that you asked for. So that's amazing. Are there different use cases for big customers, small customers, and have you developed a different service organization, sort of an enterprise team to service those bigger folks?
Yeah. So I guess to the first question, we'll definitely see different usage patterns depending on their budget and their size of organization. We'll see gaming companies asking for larger sample sizes, so typically 200 to 500 responses, whereas
Yeah,
we'll see some of the smaller companies doing as low as 15, but maybe 30 or 50 more frequently, just because that's what fits within their budget. Um, but then, yeah, on the enterprise side, we do have a team and also subscription offerings that cater to larger organizations. We can do prepaid credits, we can do custom contracts and invoices. We are SOC 2 compliant, where we do all the things that large organizations do need in terms of compliance. So, to your question earlier, like it is an interesting challenge to be able to service kind of like the guy off the street writing his book and was willing to pay $15 to a large organization who's really willing to have all their teams set up on it and wants to do a big prepaid credit purchase. So but it's a challenge that we welcome, and we try to make the software as easy to use for all of them, because at the end of the day, just because you're large doesn't mean you want to use complicated software. Like you still want it easy to use.
true. Do you see a lot of product-led growth, or so that
Yeah.
you start getting one user in a big organization and they share and it
Yeah.
spreads?
Exactly. Yeah, that's typically because we're not very sales driven, and so all of our growth in those large companies have come from a product led motion where a marketer will find it and then they'll use it within their team, then they'll share it at a some kind of internal sharing session, and then some other teams will start using it. That'll trigger some usage that requires procurement to get involved because now it's reached some kind of threshold, and then we go through a sales process, and so that's typically the way that we see it.
Dang it, the procurement always gets involved then.
Yeah. They always find a way to get into it.
Yeah, to be helpful. Awesome. And so you got your MVP to market 15 years ago or more.
Yeah.
How's the company evolved and grown during that time period? And roughly how, if you're willing to share, how many people do you have today? And
Yeah.
are you all in the same place?
Yeah. So we started really trying to grow the company around 2018, 2019. Like I said, that's kind of when e-commerce started taking hold. And we grew a lot through the pandemic. E-commerce was going really fast. Same with gaming.
Yeah,
So we kind of rode those waves, and we're about 20 people now, fully
right.
distributed. So when we first started the company, I was in Los Angeles. My co-founder was up in the Bay Area, and we never found a common place that we wanted to be just because of families and whatnot. And so when we decided to scale the team, we wanted to make sure that it was always kind of in equal footing. We didn't want to like hire everyone in LA or SF. And so we made a very conscious effort to hire globally. Um, and the other reason is that what we found was so much of our customer base is global. So, over
Wow.
half of our customers are non-US, and we wanted our team to reflect that diversity and kind of build in those different perspectives into the product and the way that we market it, even to the support that we offer. So, we have people in Kazakhstan to France to South Africa to Greece, Pakistan, like literally all over the place.
That's awesome.
And it's awesome because like there's so many different perspectives that come in and like, oh, that's worded weird, or that's not the way that we would expect to see it. And you kind of get that testing built into it as opposed to waiting until it hits that country and it's like, oh, that's completely off. And so,
Yeah.
there's obviously more challenge to it. Globally distributed, the asynchronousness is kind of what you got to focus on. And speed can be a little bit more difficult, but I think it gives us a lot more resilience in terms of round the clock coverage of things, and then all those different perspectives. Really interesting.
Yeah, that's great. And has that global growth also been largely organic?
Yeah, it has. When we first started, our respondent pool base was US only. But then of course our customers don't just sell in the US, they sell in other
Mm.
countries, especially Amazon. There's a lot of different marketplaces. And so we started expanding our respondent pool, and we're up to 12 different countries now.
Wow.
I don't think I can name them off the top of my head, but Mexico, UK, Germany, Spain, France, South Korea recently. And so as we launch in each of those countries, we start to see usage not only from people outside, but also from people inside those countries, right? Because, we found that there were a lot of German users testing against German consumers because they just happen to sell to their own, countrymen. And so, yeah, there's a lot of organic growth in every country that we launch, which is great to see, even without much push, because there is this lack of this kind of tool. So it is filling a need um, for entrepreneurs and companies around the world.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, have you seen any other interesting, funny differences between the different countries? Do they want to test different things in different ways, or is the
You
behavior pretty
know,
similar?
it's actually the funny thing is actually how consistent the pattern has been of, when we enter a new space, we'll almost always see the same kind of users come through. So we started in the US and it was a lot of authors testing book covers, and
All right.
like almost in every country, like that's almost the first thing that happens is that we'll see people testing book titles, book covers, and there's kind of like this
Oh,
evolution. Um, eventually hitting e-commerce products. But I think it just goes to show that, kind of like there's the saying that everyone's writing the great American novel. And I think everyone deep down is kind of an author trying to write some kind of book. And so that's always the fun thing to see is, we'll see people sign up from a company and it's like, oh, cool, we got that company. No, actually, it's that guy who's writing a book,
Yeah.
personally, cool
Yeah.
book, but like it's not that company. So it's funny to see how many people are writing out there. And now that self-publishing is so easy, I feel like it's, even more commonplace.
Yeah. And AI tools to create those covers probably make it
Exactly.
even more accessible. Well, that's so cool. You get to see be on the forefront, right? Even before, Gemba, we're excited because we get to be on the forefront of creation of new products and turning ideas into reality. And you're right there with us, testing those different versions of things that don't really exist yet, but are about to
Exactly.
be created.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to focus on is that it's a great platform to test hypothetical changes. And, there's a lot of techniques for testing things live, um, but not so much on the hypothetical changes. And I think it's a great way to de-risk. And I think it does take a little bit of, changing the mental model of how you design and how you decide on when to go to market with something, because I think there's been a lot of talk in all the different industries around, making MVPs or even, you know, um, you could use Kickstarter, you could do like ads to landing pages, but all of that is very live. And a lot of times you don't want some of these things seeing the light of day if you want to have, and it actually gives you much more creative freedom to be able to test in a sandbox, knowing that like potential customers aren't going to be, you know, seeing something like that. So I think that's one of the differentiations that I like to highlight, especially as people try to understand how this fits in with live testing, perhaps on Amazon or website live testing. And it's not necessarily a replacement, but it is a complement, right? Because it's something you should be doing before coming up with those versions. As you're coming up with those versions for the live test, you can use PickFu to test those hypothetical changes. And then, of course, you can take the top two, do a live test, and you're getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think it's a great tool too that, validate that you have something or not. We see so many, I'd say most ideas die before they even, make it from a person's mind into the ether or, into the general consciousness. And I think this is just such a great tool that if you don't really know if your idea is great or worthy, at
Yeah.
least spend $150 on getting some feedback,
Yeah.
and that will either validate or unvalidate it. But most likely you're gonna learn something that's gonna help you take that next step in your journey.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, one of the early reasons that we started it was, every entrepreneur knows this, that you start by just asking your friends and family, and you don't really get the most honest feedback. And they're really way too nice to you, and they're like, "Well, that sounds great, like whatever you say, you're a smart guy, like, and you'll make it work," or stuff like that. And they're probably not your target audience. I mean, almost 100% not likely. So that's why we built this, because we had been entrepreneurs for a number of years, and we kept sending stuff to our friends and family. It's like, all right, like this is not useful anymore. Like we need to get out of our own echo chamber and uh, get very uh, unfiltered strangers to
Yeah.
bash on your ideas, and that's
Yeah.
that's what it takes sometimes.
Yeah. It's almost uncanny how often, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'd say many times the best ideas come from the same process you've gone through, right? You try to solve the problem for yourself,
Yeah,
and that turns into be something that's useful for others. It seems when you're starting with, the goal to come up with an idea to start a business, that's not often as successful because you're just like forcing something
yeah,
versus when the world is telling you that, hey, that there's a need here.
exactly.
Awesome. So Have you, and again, don't have to answer this, but have you raised money, or is it self-funded, or are you planning on raising money?
It's self-funded. Yeah. So, we were building another business along the way. And so like that was what funded the growth and development for PickFu all those years. And then
Yeah,
we were able to switch over to PickFu when it was kind of at the right size.
yeah, congratulations. And that's, I know it's not easy, but it's awesome. And you can be control or own 100% of your own business.
Yeah.
So we're at the very early 2025, right after the Trump's inauguration. What do you see, unrelated to Trump, of course, but 2025 and ahead? What are your plans? What excites you about the next 12 months?
Um, well, company wise, we're focused. We're pretty heads down, continuing to be focused on products. Like I said, we're very PLG. Um, there's a lot of AI things that we want to keep working into the product because I think there's a lot of opportunity to make it even easier for our customers with AI assisting. And so that's kind of where we're focused. We're going to continue expanding our respondent pool base as customers kind of demand, and then just keep making the process easier and easier, especially kind of focus on these larger organizations and making it easy to use in teams and things like that. So that's kind of where our focus is. I think uh, it'll be a lot of wait and see, I guess, in terms of like how things go in e-commerce in general. I think there's a lot up in the air in terms of like if if tariffs happen or if
What's going to
logistically
happen to
things.
TikTok? Don't
Yeah,
know.
who knows? Yeah, there's a lot of a lot of we just got to wait and see. So not sure like how that will impact the business, but I think there's more continued growth, kind of, in e-commerce. And I think what's actually great is that the diversifications of platforms that people are selling on now. I think for a few years it seemed like it was either all Amazon or all Shopify, and now I feel like all kinds of different marketplaces that you can go on, a lot of different ways you can sell direct. And so I think that's great. I think it opens up a lot more avenues for new entrepreneurs to come in, and there's a constant reinvention in the space of you know channels and techniques and what's going to work. And so hard to predict what it's going to be like at the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree. It felt like a couple of years ago it was sort of Amazon became the monopoly,
Yeah,
and as a result, it get harder and harder to get shelf space and
yeah,
success. And now it feels like there's a little Wild West again, with all the other platforms and everything emerging. So I think, and whenever there's a Wild West, there's opportunity.
yeah.
So I think that's good. So in case people are interested in learning more, I'm sure many will be. Where should they go and to learn more about PickFu?
Yeah, so you can just come to our website, pickfu.com, PickFu, and you can sign up for free. Check it out. There's a free onboarding poll that you could try out. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Justin Chen, and I'm pretty active over there.
Awesome. And before we end here, you've been through a lot. Most of our listeners are entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. Any final words of wisdom or advice that you would give someone who's getting started here in 2025?
Um, let's see. I
Use
guess
PickFu.
use PickFu, talk to your customers, gather feedback. Don't obsess over perfection. I think just
Mhm.
making progress, I think is always important. It's something we try to push our team to do as well. Just ship it, like in whatever form, you got to find ways to get feedback and validate against the market, talk to your customers, listen, read reviews, all that kind of stuff. So um, I think I think new entrepreneurs tend to uh, over focus on getting things 100% right, and you're never going to get things 100% right. You just got to go with the flow.
Yeah, great words of wisdom. It's easy to get overwhelmed by the options, right? Should I
Yeah.
launch on this platform, that platform, launch this
Or the
product?
timing's not right or this or that. Yeah.
And in my experience, just like you said, just pick one. Doesn't matter if you right.
Yeah.
But what's important is that you make progress and you're learning.
Yeah.
So just start, take that next step, and that will help create momentum for the next one.
That's right.
Awesome, Justin. This has been so fun and great. I really appreciate you taking time, and looking forward to working closer together with Gemba and PickFu in 2025. Thanks again, and have a great year.
Great. Thank you. You too.